Well, welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I am joined by the one and only MLB department head, LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good yourself?
Yeah, it's just another week and another crazy week of baseball. So this time around, we're going to talk about first baseman. And LaMarr, go ahead with your top five.
Top five in no particular order that I've ever seen. Mark McGwire, Frank Thomas, Albert Pujols, um, Mark McGwire, Frank Thomas, Albert Pujols. Damn, I had it written down somewhere. Mark McGwire, Frank Thomas, Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, and Jeff Bagwell.
Yeah, that's an interesting group
Yeah.
right there. I can't lie. I always liked Jeff Bagwell, especially with the way his batting stance was. I always thought that was kind of interesting. Whenever I could give my top five, I would definitely say it's me, like in no particular order either. Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols, and then I would also go Frank Thomas. I always liked the
Yeah.
way that he was a big like monster at the plate and everything.
Yeah.
Albert Pujols, his swing. I would never understand like how this guy actually swung the bat until like I would actually look up YouTube videos on it. It seemed like he would align his knuckles like the right way with his hands. I'm like, wait, that makes so much sense. But it's like whenever you look at
Yeah.
him, it's like, is he really that strong?
Yeah.
Watching that guy run, yo, that is entertaining in and of itself. But let's see. I think I named three right there. Miguel Cabrera for sure. Always just a stud in at least the power sense. I'll go McGwire too. Just because of just who he was, how he played the game. Even though steroids kind of played a factor, but even then it was just like even before that, just a great all around player. And then no, and then probably number five. How can I see this? You know what? I will go Prince Fielder just because you know what? I just admired how that man would play first base, but just admiring the way that like his size kind of was. It's like you would honestly think to yourself, like as a first baseman, Prince Fielder. In all honesty, the way his first name is like Prince Fielder, it's like, man, your parents did a great job with like naming you, but like, man, you knew how to play the game well. And I just admired the way he like just took his at bats and everything. But I really admired Pujols. He's still playing strong even after all these years returning to St. Louis. But I admire Pujols' swing and stuff, and especially the way he plays the game. But I also want to make a touch on first baseman. They ultimately play the game a little differently because I wouldn't say they have one of the toughest positions, but they also I don't know if a lot of people notice this, but first baseman in their glove, it's different compared to
Yeah.
like the rest of the fielders. And, it's just, it kind of makes you think like, man, is it a secondary catcher on the field? Because I've never understood why, first basemen have that kind of glove, but it's ultimately always kind of interesting in the long run. What do you think?
Yeah. I played first base and some in Little League, and still I have to use the bigger glove too.
Yeah, it's I actually tried to play for like this is not even a joke. Like I actually played first base in Little League and then a little bit of Pony League, and I actually tried playing with a regular fielding glove, and then I found out real quickly like why first basemen have the glove that they do, and I'm just like, yeah, this is not good. But definitely a very good position. A lot of talented players for sure,
Yeah.
and ultimately there's a lot of future Hall of Famers that we did name. So I know Pulse is going to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
But
Cabrera,
I kind of
definitely.
do miss Prince Fielder a lot, but Miguel Cabrera sure is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Probably he's definitely going to go into the Hall of Fame for sure. But um, Also, a lot of things happening in baseball besides our top five first baseman, whatever you have it. I know something you wanted to touch on is the LA Angels, and boy oh boy, they're making news for a lot of the wrong reasons, LaMarr.
Yeah, it's real bad out there. What they lose, the 12 straight?
Yeah, they lost again last night. They're playing right now, and it's not looking good at all. They fired Joe Madden, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, do you think that that's the right move for them to make, to fire Joe Madden, or do you think like, hey man, maybe like at least give him a chance to like get out of it?
No, you start losing 10 and 12 straight with the talent they got on that team. Something has to change.
Oh, absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
ain't no because now you about 10 games back in the standings. I don't see that. I know it's a lot of games left. I don't see the Astros losing no 10-game lead.
You know what? Not you
Too much
point
stuff
that
got to
out.
happen. You got to go on
That's true.
you got to go. Yeah, too much stuff got to happen. You got to beat them every time you play them head to head, and you got to go on a big run, winning 10 games in a row or something like that. And that don't mean you might win 10 games in a row and only gain 2 games.
Exactly. And see that's why it's all the more important that those divisional games matter
Yeah,
early on,
yeah,
because I didn't even get a chance to look, but I know that they've probably faced the Angels, and the Astros have probably gone head to head at least 6 times, maybe already. I know that they've had a couple head to head
yeah,
matchups, and it's just you minus those from what they currently have to do, and like yeah, to the fans out there, yes, it is it 2 months into the season, but you also got to look at it this way: is you get like what 18 or 19 games for each divisional opponent, and it's like even if you've played 6 games, that is ultimately, let's see, 16. That's like 13 games to go, and like
yeah,
even if you have that, like and you have a 10 and you're behind 10 games in the standings, you have to like legit sweep the rest of it, and then you actually have to hope that they go on a
yeah,
losing streak of some kind, and it's
yeah.
just it's tough and it's sad. I mean, I kind of look at it as first off, what are your thoughts on Joe Madden as a manager? Because I could go a lot of different ways with this, especially with some of the interviews that like I've seen this guy do for like, different media outlets and everything. Like, what's your perception been of him since like you've seen him in the league?
He got this. Everybody know him for that for what he did at the Devil Rays, turned them teams around. But ever since he left, he really haven't. I mean, did too much.
Do you
I
think that
mean,
he's a player, like he's a player's coach, or he's more
you know,
like, I gotta find a way to like win this stuff, no matter like what my
yeah.
relationship is with the players?
And a lot of it was too. He did do well with the Cubs, so and the Cubs haven't won nothing in years, so he won the World Series in 2016 with them, and they had some good other winning seasons there as well. So I mean, the Angels are like, okay, this guy good at turning franchises around. Let's see if we can do ours, and it's backfired.
I want to. I see where you're going, because I mean I can attest to how he was with the Rays and then how he's
Yeah.
with the Cubs. But allow me to ask you this perspective: considering you're a West Coast guy, you really follow a lot of West Coast baseball and everything like that, especially with the Giants. But with the team that Joe Madden had with the Angels, do you think it was better talent wise compared to the teams that he had with the Rays and with the Cubs, or do you think it was about the same?
I think the Rays and the Cubs is more well-rounded roster-wise. The Angels roster is kind of top-heavy with Trout and Otani. So I would say the other team's still well-rostered, but you got big names on your team. You got to win in any
Yeah,
sport.
yeah, totally. Because you got to
Yeah,
look at it as Otani's going to become a free agent soon, and he's like going to be 27 years old. So, in baseball terminology, he is entering his prime.
yeah,
Mike Trout's in his prime, but it's just like I think Art Moreno knows that like I got to win now, and I got to do everything at all costs, because like what a like, and I don't really mean this in a good way, but what a great storyline would it be to catch a lot of major headlines, be like, the Angels have paid Mike Trout all this money, and they've probably only made one postseason appearance in his entire career. It's just like, that would not look great. And especially if you have guys like Ohtani, that's like literally the Babe Ruth of modern day. And, you got Mike Trout that, he's still like in a slump of his own self. I'm not sure if he recorded a hit last night or not. I really didn't have a chance to like look at that, but even he's in a slump. I mean, there's a lot of things that are like not going the Angels' way right now. Like, we can really touch on this in a lot of different ways, because you got to figure they just came off of a road trip where on Sunday they really had everything in their back pocket. They had a lead, and then all of a sudden, Bryce Harper hits a game-tying grand slam that just really puts the hedge into the coffin. And then it's like they regained the lead in the top of the ninth to only lose it onto a walk-off home run. But then it's like, what I really want to touch on is the fact that in that series in New York, they had a doubleheader where Ohtani pitched the day portion of that doubleheader, and he was already gone by like the fourth inning. Do you see like the kind of the momentum shift, or a better question would be, do you think that specific part took a toll onto the team? Because you got to realize is you're playing a doubleheader and then you have to travel to Philadelphia.
It plays a little toll, but they were stumbling before that. So, I mean, the Ohtani thing, they say they were saying that Ohtani was tipping his pitches against the Yankees. That's why it felt like he was hitting them hard. But, I mean, you got to play ball, man. Baseball is a grueling sport. You play just about every day. You got to be tough-minded. And, 12 games in a row, man. Good teams don't lose that many games in a row.
That is true. You're putting that right on the button. Like, good teams, like, especially with depth, they will not find a way to lose 10 games in a row. And especially like, we could hit on it from a lot of different angles. Yes, like, they're in the AL West, but the only legit team right now that is going to like challenge them in that division is the Astros, and the Astros have a commanding lead in that division. So, like, I'm not here to say that the unthinkable or the impossible can't happen, but this is the Houston Astros we're talking about that, a lot of things are going to have to happen.
Yeah.
Dusty Baker's back, and it's just the whole 9 yards. But, there's another thing I actually want to touch on, because I think that there are a lot of contributing factors to the Angels being in a slump that they're in. And one thing that I think that is a big issue right now, and it might not be getting talked about, this is one thing that I realized that Matt Vasgersian was hinting about whenever he was talking about Ohtani on the Angels broadcast. And it was like, in some ways, you kind of have to feel for Ohtani in some ways, because he doesn't get your average like day off in an MLB, because he's both a pitcher and a hitter. And no matter what day it is, he's always doing something that in regards to pitching or hitting. And do you kind of think that even though maybe it doesn't look like he's slowing down in some ways, do you think that in some ways, playing both sides of it, even being a DH in pitching, it can be taking a mental toll or physical toll on him, but he's like either not saying anything or else people might not be pointing to that direction?
Yeah, could be. It's interesting, man. I just don't know what to make of it.
You know what? I don't either, because like, how about I give the fans this perspective, okay? The Angels at one point were 21-11 to start the season, and that was not too long ago. And then out of nowhere, they've lost they've lost now 12 games in a row. So like, I want to give people the perspective, like, they're on a big losing streak. Like, they like, this losing streak has taken them out of first place. it doesn't help that, Ohtani has gotten hit around some. And I mean, he's still hitting the ball solid, but then it also doesn't help when you have Mike Trout in a drought that he's in, and you got all this traveling. Like, baseball, as much as it's not a contact sport, it is a physically grueling and demanding sport because you're doing a lot of traveling. And it's something I even touched on in the article. You got a lot of like media personnel that like to criticize these players, but like, do the media personnel really have the credentials to do that? Because can you prove to me that you can actually go on this kind of streak or like maintain a streak? I even was looking at Trout's stats the other day, even with him, on this for like, what is it, 25 now or something? Like, I don't even know if he actually got a hit yet. He might have, but even then, it's just like that's still a long streak to begin with. But even think about it this way: in his OPS, he's still top 10 in the entire league, and then he's number 7 in the American League. Even with his like 0 for 23 streak, with the last time I looked at and wrote the article. So you got to look at it from a multiple perspective. Is he's still a great player, and he's just got to find a way to like think. But I noticed one thing that is leading to this big gap. He's a little slow with the timing on the fastball. Notice how a lot of pitchers are starting to throw that fastball like up in the zone where Trout notoriously does not swing at. Can you like hint on that for perspective? Like, do pitchers like notoriously know that Trout doesn't like swing at that, or are they just like throwing that just because, this guy's he's in a cold spell?
Yeah, they know. They definitely know the stats, man. They got all these stats where your hot and cold zones, where you like to pitch, where you like to hit at, what balls you like, and they attack that. They try to attack your weaknesses.
Oh yeah,
they know.
They know for sure, and it's tough. But I mean, let's put it this way: if you're Mike Trout, on Sunday he was out early taking live BP, and a lot of people hint on it. That's something he normally doesn't do. He's normally inside in the cage, and he's outside doing it. Like, at this point, if you're a Mike Trout, what do you honestly do? Like, do you pull out all stops, like say, I have to like do this? Or do you maybe think like the Angels should be proactive and be like, maybe this guy just needs a rest day and just like, try to like snap him out to get that timing back? Or like, what do you think needs to happen?
Just batting practice and look at film. Put up film of now how he's struggling now, and then put up a film of when he was like on a hot streak or going good, and put it side by side and see if he knows anything he's doing different.
You know what? That is a good thing that they should probably do. And maybe the Angels have thought of it, maybe they haven't. But either way, I mean, I know that something's got to happen because they got to rely heavily on this guy. Because, I mean, they're paying him a boatload of salary, not trying to make that the obvious point, but let's be realistic. When you're an owner or a GM and you're paying a guy a boatload of salary, you're going to expect a lot of production in return. And right now, that's not happening. And, I know sooner rather than later, he's going to probably snap out of it, and he might go on a tear that we'd never seen before, that, thing, or it might just put this slump in a rearview mirror. But I mean, until it happens, it happens. But, overall, I mean, let's be realistic now here. The Angels are on a homestand that is going to conclude this weekend against the Mets. They have the Red Sox in town right now. Ironically, both teams have already been out on the West Coast in California. So I don't know if that really favors either of the Angels' opponents or not, considering the Angels have been on the East Coast. It probably could, because the Angels have had to fly back. But I want to touch on this because it's not necessarily the Red Sox, but it's the two teams that are after that. They have the Mets coming in, and then they have the Dodgers on the road.
Yeah.
Do you think that I mean, this is going to be like I haven't stretched or stressed, I should say, not stretched, but stressed how the previous road trip was going to be a testament. I honestly think that this is going to be a huge testament because, you got two legit playoff caliber teams that could potentially be the world vying for a World Series spot in the playoffs. Not saying that they would go because they would eventually have to face each other, but do you really think that this is like the proving point of the Angel season? Like, okay, you guys have all this talent and everything, and we know where you guys are at. Like, this is for you to prove it or not.
Yeah, it is. 1,200. You can't keep losing this many games in a row. It's not good. I mean, you want to turn around, try to get back in the wild card picture. I mean, still time. We just got to start putting some good innings together and put some good games together.
It is time. It's and I really want to stress to people. Here's the unique aspect of baseball. These early stretches on. I think that whenever you look at, say the season 2 months down the line, whether the Angels go on a big winning streak or not is going to be yet to be seen. They're still going to have a legit chance at the third wild card spot, which is vital now, I think. But I think whenever you look at the season in 2 months from now, we're all going to look back and just be like, this is the stretch of games that really may have cost the Angels what could have been a promising season. And I just want to relate to the people, like, that's something that's vital because – we talk about how grueling baseball is. It's 162 games. There's a lot of traveling involved. And as much as it's not that much in contact, it is a very, I would say it's about, it's a very mental game, but it's also like a very like physical game. And like you really have to keep your body in the shape, but it's more of like the mental aspect of fighting the mental toughness. They're going to look back and just be like, you know what, this is probably where it cost us. But like, how do you think like say the 12 or maybe even the 13 or however long this losing streak is, 2 months down the line, they look back and they say, that is where our season turned.
Yeah, they're always going to look back, whether they make the playoffs or not. They be like, make the playoffs, the wild cards. Like, dang, if we don't go get that 12-game losing streak back in June, we could have won a division or been in play for a division. But you can't think about that. You just got to try to snap out this losing streak and get back to winning games.
Yeah, but see, that's the mental part of baseball that kicks in. Is like, and that's the thing is a lot of people, fans and reporters alike, they will literally point to that. And like, yeah, it's great that you can point to that, but it's another whole aspect to say, you know what, we've seen where we went wrong, but we use that as motivation to say, now we got to just move forward. Because, and here's another thing I want to touch on, and I noticed how you said this earlier in one of the first two podcasts, is the pitching. You've always said that the Angels, like, they've had the offensive machinery, but they never really had the pitching. Do you think that speaks volume in the current day with their losing streak and everything? Like, the offense is there, but it's just like they're lacking the pitching.
Right now, I want to say lacking a little bit of everything. I mean, pitching has been mediocre, but they're still hanging in there. Let me pull up the stats real quick. Because when I checked last week, the ERA was still in the threes, which is pretty good.
When
you're in a big losing streak like that, it's a little bit of everything. They just can't point the finger at just the pitching. It's the hitting. It's all combined.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. But right now the ERA is a bit higher. They give 4.25 ERA now. Wait. I read that wrong. ERA. Yeah, 4.69 ERA actually. Yeah, that's not good. So the pitching and hitting. Yeah.
That is not a good ERA. That is not good. I don't think we can emphasize enough how like not good that ERA is, because that's just abysmal. Like you need to.
No, wait a minute. I read that wrong. I read last year's. It's 3.99.
I mean, even still, though,
Yeah,
that's really not that
yeah,
good. I mean, you
yeah,
need to bring that down some and then some
yeah,
because that's not good. That
yeah,
is not good at all. But hey, we always know that there are teams that are going to have those dry spells, and then there's teams that are going to become a little bit better than what they are. And
yeah,
I think that down the line, the Angels are going to snap out of this, whether it's in the near future or not. But I think right now, this is going to be a telling tale that, hey, man, this might have been the swinging point that says the Astros won this division and that the Angels' best bet is to, like, get a wild card. But I also think that, and don't count this out. It could say down the line that the Angels use this as motivation to say, we are going to turn things around, but we're also going to get a wild card, but we're also going to make a deep, like, we're going to try to make a run into the playoffs to show people that, like, we're here, we got this, and, stuff like that. Because, I mean, that's all they really can do. You can't look back in baseball. It's a mental game. You can't look back on what would have been. You can only use that as, like, the motivation to say, we got to find some way somehow to snap out of this and just look forward and be like, we got to win the rest of the games. Like, not going to lie, they can look forward to, like, dismantling the Athletics, maybe dismantling the Mariners and saying those are games we could get back. However, you got to look at other things and ask yourself, okay, but can you get back games that you lost in hand on the Astros? And that's just a whole different topic for a whole different day. One thing I'd like to touch on, though, is the Pittsburgh Pirates a little bit. I started to see a little bit of a resurgence with them. I know that they designated Cole Tucker for assignment. He then got released, and the Diamondbacks picked him up. And I can go a whole lot of different ways on this. I honestly think that they kind of rushed his call up in some ways. I know that over the years the Pirates have they've had problems with player development. It's either they've called players up too early or they just really don't have the proper personnel in the minor leagues that can develop these players good. Because the one thing I have never understood, and this just might be me, but I can also see this as the Pirates organization being run is the Pirates just seem to, like, not develop these players properly, or if they do, it's a hit. But here's the way that I look at it is they players will leave and they end up doing better. Ironically, Cole Tucker's from the Arizona area, and the thing that I really want to touch on though is he was a first round pick. He was like pick number 24, and
mhm,
for you to spend that kind of draft pick on a guy that you really just designated for assignment and then release, like, that kind of says something. I know with a lot of professional sports organizations, like, they don't really like to spend that much on a first round pick just to do that. But, like, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah. I think you gotta bring up these guys. You gotta be cautious when you bring them up. Sometimes you bring them up too early, and they gotta send down, go back down, and it's like could play with their head a little bit. I mean, the Giants are going through that right now with Joey Bart. They just sent him down. And he was struggling bad, struck out a whole bunch, batting like 154 or so finally today. We're gonna send them down, tell them they're gonna try to work on the swing down there, and hopefully you don't hopefully just go down there and work hard and don't get in his own head and can make it back up and turn into a good player like the Giants want him to be. But sometimes, we get sent down. Sometimes it kind of messes with your confidence, and some players never get a snap out of it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's totally true. That is, in some ways I kind of feel for Cole Tucker. I've seen him play. He's not a bad player. I just think it was along the lines of a developmental problem. It's either the Pirates really just couldn't develop him the right way, or it's just maybe the Pirates system just didn't fit him. But I hope that the Diamondback system fits him because the guy. I mean, to get drafted where Cole got drafted, I mean, it says a lot. I mean, whether the Pirates just highly thought of him that way or like the rest of Major League Baseball didn't. Either way, I mean, he got picked right there. He has that to his name and everything. But yeah, I mean, like you said, players getting sent down, it could take a mental toll on them, and I don't think a lot of people understand about baseball. It's a really mental game. It's like your head's got to be in it, but like you getting sent down and sent up so many times, it could be like, does this team really value me? Like, is my skill set really valuable, or is it just like they're really just trying to like exonerate this, and this, and you know what? To be honest with you, though, it's kind of crazy, spiraling off of the Cole Tucker part, the Pirates have, lost, like have faced the Reds 7 times. They've beat them 3 times, have lost 4. But then the Reds are one of the worst teams in baseball and dead last in the NL Central. But then you fast forward that and you look at a team at the Dodgers, one of the best teams in baseball, and yet the Pirates swept them in LA and they took 2 or 3 from them in Pittsburgh. It's just, I sometimes just wonder, you look at the game of baseball and you're just like, wow, how does this happen? Like, you struggle against a very bad team, but yet you somehow find a way to be a really good team. I mean, is there really an explanation for that, or is it just, hey, man, maybe we just had their number?
No, not really an explanation. It's like you said, they have the number. They play well against the Dodgers. That's how it works.
The Pirates are notoriously they're bad on the West Coast. I mean, if you look at the past couple seasons, their West Coast trips have been abysmal. Like they've had losing records. It just seems like the West Coast teams own them. But it's just like I can honestly say it's one of 2 things. It's either the fact that they went to Dodger Stadium during the early part of the week, so it wasn't the weekend. So that had a factor into it or something. I mean, it's just I just guess it was the Pirates caught the Dodgers at a great time. I mean, and the weird part is now that I think about it, the Pirates faced the Dodgers early on in the season. I've noticed how they sometimes have faced them mid to late in the season where the Dodgers have caught fire. So I guess that could be a contributing factor too, is maybe the schedule makers just had the Pirates' best interest, just was like, we're going to schedule this early on to like get it out of the way. And, like we said, it's 2 months into the season, some shocking things happen and some teams are trying to find their groove. It's just that could have been what could have happened. But, I'm just kind of glad that, they got their West Coast trip out of the way early. And I'm just kind of glad that they're not facing the Dodgers anymore this season, even though I would have liked for them to have like a mid-season like matchup. But I guess sometimes things are a blessing in disguise whenever it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, baseball is a funny game, like they always say, man. You could catch a team at the right time where a couple players are struggling and pitching is struggling, and Pirates just probably get up, get the extra room to face the Dodgers, and they play well against them. They play well against the Dodgers. They should start playing well against every other team too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole entire point, because let's put it this way. If you could prove that you could beat one of the best teams in baseball, and by the way, the Dodgers are going to be paying an extraordinary luxury tax that we'll get into on a different episode. But the fact that you could beat a team like that just tells me, wait, how can you struggle against the Reds, but you can beat one of the best teams in baseball? Like, you should be able to go toe-to-toe with anybody in play. But like you said, man, it's all about when you catch these teams. Sometimes you catch those notoriously bad matchups on the best time and vice versa. And, at the end of the day, hey, as a Pirate fan that I grew up watching them and everything, yes, I'm happy that the Pirates caught the Dodgers early and that they've won. But at the same time, you should have something to show for that. I mean, I know that the Pirates have called up a few minor leaguers that, have started to make a little bit of a difference. Not a big difference, but a little difference. But, just judged based off of seeing what the Pirates have called up recently, I'd say that the future can be bright, but it's all about if the system and everything's in place for that to be the right way. But, You know, you got anything else to add? Because I know we're coming up on about 2 minutes here before this ends. And got anything else to add?
Yeah, I was talking about teams losing 12 games in a row. What was crazy, the 2000 Yankees lost 15 of their last 20 games before the playoffs and ended up winning the World Series and lost 7 in a row going into the playoffs. That was nobody talked about that much, but I remember that. It's like, and I looked it up while we was talking about the Angels lose 12 in a row. I was like, yeah, they lost 15 out of 20 games and 7 in a row going to playoffs and won the World Series.
Talk about Cinderella stories. They talk about them all the time. I mean, I can't say that that's a
Yeah.
Cinderella story, but I can honestly say that that's the unthinkable that happens because who's to say that, hey,
Yeah.
if the Angels lose right now, which they are, who's to say that they can't bounce back and go on an unthinkable or unimaginable run? And then it's just like, wait, you mean to tell me that like that actually occurred? So but yeah, we are going to actually wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast.